Okay, so it's 6 p.m. people. Let's start off with this session. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Coach to Transformation's Communities of Practice Books on Coaching series. Our communities of practice are dedicated spaces where coaches come together, learn, share their experiences, insights, and case studies, creating a space for meaningful conversations and collective growth. In our Books on Coaching series, we dive into impactful coaching literature that helps us expand our perspectives and refine our practices and grow as coaches. I'm Chaitanya, your host for today's session, and I'm delighted to welcome Mayank Sharma, one of our participants, who will be taking us through the book, The Advice Trap. I'd like to request everyone to keep your cameras on and actively participate in the session so we can make it engaging and a very interactive session. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Mayank.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Hello, good evening, everyone, and good morning and good afternoon, depending on which time zone you're based in right now. Welcome to today's session of Books on Coaching. My name is Mayank Sharma. I'm an avid reader, a passionate writer with experience coming from technology industry. Today we will deep dive into this book, The Advice Trap, written by Michael Bungie Stanier. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, Mayank.
Okay, you can see the slide, right?
Yes, we can see the slide.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, this book is not about, coaching, how to make you a coach. Essentially, in this book, Michael provides us tools to make curiosity and everyday leadership behavior, right? Like most of us, you must be wondering why are we holding a book of advice on how to give less advice, right? Somebody says, it should not work, but it does work. So, let's see how, this book works. There are three parts in this book. The first part is how to tame your advice monster with a coach like mindset in four simple steps. Part two talks about precise tools to stay curious for longer. And part three is about, how to master your coaching habit. In the best interest of time, we will just cover part one in today's session. Okay. In last 1 or 2 days, uh, did you ever, give a well-considered advice to anyone? You just, have to answer yourself. And did it work? If you gave any advice, it may be yes or it may be no, right? Sometimes, our advice works, sometimes it doesn't work. Even if we think it worked, probably it worked less well than you think. Maybe it's satisfied, with a nearly good solution to the advice taker. Why? Because, you know, you might not have considered big picture. And why does that happen? Sometimes, we are solving the wrong problem, or, the solution is mediocre, which is just a close enough solution may not be exactly the right solution because we missed out the big picture. And that happens, as written in the book, baggage of opinions, oceans of assumptions, loads of past experience that creates our perceptions. And when all these things really, get onto our mind, we become the victim of AGH. This is an acronym the author has come up with, which stands for advice giving habit. Yeah. And why does that happen? We jump the gun sometimes. When as a human behavior, when we listen to someone's problems, or we tend to give advice, jump the gun, solve the first thing that shows up, and that's exactly when we fall into the trap of becoming advice-driven leader. What are kind of implications of that? It demotivates advice receivers because they get into the mode of receiving advices every time, into a receiving mode, and at some point they stop thinking. It does overwhelm advice giver because they become bottleneck. They are always overwhelmed. They are under stress. There's a lot of obligation for things they're doing which others should be doing, and it does compromise overall team's effectiveness. And there's an impact to all. Organizations get impacted because leaders who are supposed to be having strategic thinking, they spend a lot of time on day-to-day operational issues, and which kind of doesn't allow them to even spend enough bandwidth to strategic thinking. And that's where organizational changes get impacted. Liz Wiseman uh, kind of characterized leaders who are coach like as multiplier leaders. I'm sure you can relate to some people you might have worked with, or maybe your own experiences as a multiplier leader. Now, staying curious for long remains a big challenge because it requires behavioral change. Any behavioral change needs time, and more than time, it needs self-realization, which sometimes may take years, sometimes may take decades. As author says, uh, there is an easy change, there's a hard change. And he has very well given analogy of what is easy change. Easy change is when you're using a smartphone, there's a new app which you're trying to use, you quickly learn it, right? And I'm sure most of us might have joined different companies, changed jobs. We try to understand what is the environment in the new organization, what are the processes, what are the products, what are the domains. We all adapt to the environment, right? That's an easy change. And then we also move from one city to another, and relocate. We figure out what's there in the other place, and try to adapt to the situation there, right? But not every change is easy. There are hard changes, right? Here, author gave a very good example when instead of just installing an app on your smartphone, you have to change the OS. In 2008, I was in the US, and bought my first iPad when it was not even launched in India. And over the years, I didn't bother to upgrade, its iOS. And later, a few years later, I realized that I was not even able to upgrade its OS because there was no bad compatibility. And today, this iPad is completely useless. And believe me, the one which initially came during 2007, 2008 in the US were really very robust, very good quality iPads. Now there are lighter ones available, but they're not as good as the one initially came used to be. But it's a hard change. I don't know what to do with this iPad today. So, these changes, and behavior change is also a hard change. And it's very important to really get into self-realization and understand what needs to change. Now here, Michael has given kind of a pictorial representation of easy change. Easy change is when I want to learn new things, find ways to learn new things, practice it a little more, improve if there are any gaps, and get pretty good at it, and stop it there. But if we don't feel comfortable, we may decide to push on to the next level of mastery. So it's quite simple. It's very intuitive. It just goes on. Whereas hard change is a little difficult, where I want to learn new things. I find ways to learn it. I utterly make no progress. So there are two options. I either drop it, dismiss the idea considering it as a stupid idea, or decide to learn a different way. Even different way doesn't work, right? What if, it doesn't work? Then again, I have a self-doubt whether this is right thing for me to take up or not, right? Uh, One way is again, dismiss the idea, or again find another way, and get into the same loop every time. So it's a tough, tough process, which kind of requires a lot of perseverance to be able to face failures, learn from those failures, and kind of bootstrap the learning from those failures to over time, and then make them a success. Whereas, the easy one is straightforward, kind of, things just happen, and we learn it the way, right? But this change we're talking about here, curiosity on everyday leadership behavior, is a hard change. How do we do it, right? The author has, very nicely explained present you versus future you. The tug of war that happens between present you, where you're already a victim of the advice monster, and you want to really change that habit. But change can only happen when you know which habits you want to change, right? There's a very good analogy of marshmallow conundrum here. If some of you may be aware, if you're not aware, I'll just brief you a little bit on that. If you give one marshmallow to a few kids and ask them uh, to hold on for 15 minutes, until they grab a bite. Uh, if they do so, if they hold on for 15 minutes, they get another marshmallow. If they can't resist their temptation and eat it within 15 minutes, they will not get another marshmallow, right? So there are some kids who can wait for 15 minutes, hold on their temptation, right? Uh, if they are able to do it, uh, they win, right? And those who are able to, you know, uh, not able to wait and grab the bite, uh, they still win in short term. That's what writer calls, wins, not wins, right? But they're losing in long term, right? They don't get another marshmallow. That is, the upside of dysfunctional behavior. I remember, one example, yeah. Although, I won't like to digress too much into my personal opinions or personal views, but while I was reading this book, I could go back down my memory lane when I was in college more than 30 years ago. There was a professor, and I bunked his class with one of my classmates, and this professor saw us, walking around in the hallway, and after the class was over, he just walked up to us and asked, why did you bunk the class? We were very, casual with him. So, I said we just had fun. So he said, okay, what was the duration of your fun? I said, yeah, probably 45 minutes, 50 minutes. We enjoyed outside, just roaming out in the college campus. Said, okay, so was this a short period or long period in your opinion? I said, yeah, it was a short period. So he said, okay, so you had a short fun. But if you decided to take pain by attending the class for, short period, then, this short-term pain would have given you long-term joy, right? So I was immediately able to relate to that experience, and probably that was the last time I ever bunked my class. Although we thought, this was early 90s, when there was a dearth of computer science professors in India, and this professor flew all the way from Australia to teach us, and we thought he's just flaunting, he's just showing off to us, his value. But in the back of, my mind, there was something which kind of, restricted me from bunking classes. So I think that it's a difficult thing to understand, and it takes time for us to really, understand what these things really mean. Kirkman drama triangle, which the author slightly referred to, while this KDT is extensively mentioned in his previous book. I'm not sure if people have read that, The Coaching Habit, though I have read that book. So I can, briefly explain in the next slide, now this KDT talks about transactional analysis, a therapeutic approach. Now there are dysfunctional roles like, victim, prosecutor, rescuer. Now, if here we have three dysfunctional roles: victim, persecutor, rescuer. And then, there is core belief, the dynamic, the benefits of playing these roles, and then price we pay to play these roles, and how we are stuck if we are in these roles. I'm sure we might have faced these roles, or played these roles in at some point or the other in our lives, right? Now, if we're playing the role of a victim, the core belief is my life is so hard, unfair, poor me, right? Self-pity. And then the dynamic would be, it's not my fault, it's their fault. Benefit we get, we have no responsibility, uh, we can't complain either, right? And we can attract rescuers. The price we pay to play this role is we have no control over change. Yeah, we are known as a whiner, right? Nobody likes whiners, right? People who keeps complaining all the time, and we are stuck. I feel I'm useless. Whereas persecutor, the core belief is I'm surrounded by fools, idiots, less capable people than me, right? Dynamic is it's not my fault, it's yours, right? Benefit is I feel superior. It gives me self-satisfaction, a sense of power and control. Price, we end up paying in this role is we responsible for everything. We create victims. There is micromanagement which happens, and I don't end up trusting anyone. I feel all alone. Rescuer, the core belief would be, don't fight, don't worry, let me jump in. I have a magic wand, I'll solve everything, right? It's not my fault anyways. It's not your fault anyways, right? And the benefit is you feel morally superior, indispensable. Nobody can fire me, right? Nobody can replace my position because I'm in control, I'm in power, I have a magic wand, right? The price we pay, people reject our help. We create victims. No one likes meddlers, right? And all the time we feel burdened being in this type of a role. Quite insightful indeed. Yeah, and feel free to jump in case anyone has some other thoughts, or those who have already read this book. I would love to hear your insight. Now, this is not part of the book. This is a short 4 minutes video, which I would like to play. It's one of my favorite clips on self-discovery. So let me just play this video. I hope you enjoy watching it.
Often meets is this.
Can you hear this video? Can you watch and hear this video?
Yes, Mayank.
Yes.
Okay.
Company on the road he takes to avoid it.
We have to do something. We can't just let him march on the valley and take his revenge. He'll...
Your mind is like this water, my friend. When it is agitated, it becomes difficult to see. But if you allow it to settle, the answer becomes clear.
Master!
Hmm?
I have... It's very bad news.
Shifu. There is just news. There is no good or bad.
Master, your vision was right. Tai Lung has broken out of prison. He's on his way.
That is bad news. If you do not believe that the Dragon Warrior can stop him.
The panda? Master, that panda is not the Dragon Warrior. He wasn't even meant to be here. It was an accident.
There are no accidents.
Maybe I should just quit and go back to making noodles.
Quit, don't quit. Noodles, don't noodles. You are too concerned with what was and what will be. There's a saying. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That is why it is called the present. If you are willing to guide it, to nurture it, to believe in it.
But how? How? I need your help, Master.
No, you just need to believe. Promise me, Shifu. Promise me you will believe.
I will try.
Good. Well, that was no accident either.
Thrice.
My old friend, the panda will never fulfill his destiny, nor you yours, until you let go of the illusion of control.
Illusion?
Yes. Look at this tree, Shifu. I cannot make it blossom when it suits me, nor make it bear fruit before its time.
But there are things we can control. I can control when the fruit will fall. And I can control where to plant the seed. Hiya! That is no illusion, Master.
Ah, yes. But no matter what you do, that seed will grow to be a peach tree. You may wish for an apple or an orange, but you will get a peach. My time has come. You must continue your journey without me.
What are you... What? Master! You can't leave me!
You must believe.
Master!
Okay. I hope you can all see my slide now.
Yes, man.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
yes,
you.
we can. Yes.
Thank you for confirmation. Yeah. Yeah, so peach tree, right? So if you sow the seed of a peach tree, you're likely to get peach fruits, right? Okay. So the three personas, as per the author, he classifies, advice monster, tell it. This is the most loud persona. Somebody, who loves spotlight, who flaunts authority, seniority, and he always knows the best, right? You must have seen, similar kind of people kind of, huddling around together in cafeteria during lunch break, right? Because they happen to move in packs. Everybody's telling, nobody's listening, right, in this situation. And typically such people appear when time is very short. Things have to be done in the 11th hour. They just rush in and say, okay, this needs to be done by tomorrow. Get it done by tomorrow, right? A lot of authority, right? Then the other persona is save it. People who are skillful in camouflaging of being very helpful to you. They have faint odor, yeah, and they prevent conflicts. They hit top velocity when confronted, right? They want you to believe you are the most responsible person, right? And there's a flip side also, because they end up becoming the victims of their own behavior, because they are the warriors. They have to fight back. They have to do everything. Then the last persona is control it. These are like manipulative people, and they have grip on everything. They don't give empowerment to anybody. So these are kind of three different personas. And let's see now how do we really tame the monster, knowing, understanding what kind of people we interact with and what kind of persona we have experienced while giving advice. Step one is we
Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
I just have I need a clarification on the previous one.
Mhm.
I just want some more clarity on the save it persona. I understood the tell it and the control it persona, but I'm
Mhm.
not, I didn't quite get the idea of the save it persona. Thank you.
Okay. The savage persona is, somebody, who kind of jumps in and says, I can save you when you are in trouble, right? They pretend to be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. They pretend to be helpful, but, they're camouflaging.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the kind of personality.
Okay.
Yeah. Got it?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay. Welcome. Yeah, so these are, four core steps that the author has advised. See, we can't kill advice monster. We just can't do away with this habit of giving advice. And believe me, it took me a while when I first picked up the book and thought, I'll present this. I thought first I should give up this habit, but still, I wasted around 2 3 weeks trying to get over the habit, and then I thought, okay, anyway, self-realization is good enough. At least I'm now aware while reading this book when I'm giving advice. So it's a very difficult thing to overcome. And still, probably in this session itself, I might be giving some advices unknowingly, right? That's hidden biases, hidden awareness. Uh, but these are really very practical four steps. First one, writer says, who let the dogs out? First identify which person triggers the advice monster in us, or which movement triggers the advice monster, or are they both, person or movement which kind of trigger together or in isolation this behavior. Step two is confession, which is kind of, very, very critical. Confess to bad behavior. Once we have identified what is that situation, and then we have to really confess to this behavior, which is very powerful, useful, however, still awkward, right? It's very difficult to acknowledge we are bad at something. This is a bad behavior that we need to really give up. The step in step three, what we identified in step two, there are costs and benefits of the behavior we have identified. We need to be able to understand. Remember the table we saw in the previous slide, where we had those costs and benefits of playing different roles. Likewise, there are costs and benefits of those bad behaviors. What will happen in short term? Short term losses. What will happen? Are we really prepared to handle short term losses, and yet be visionary and look for long term gains? What will be the repercussion of these short term losses we will face when we try to give up this behavior? Right, those kind of things. And step four is future you. The acronym the author has is FTW. Become a better version of yourself.
This confessions here, we this is all self-analysis and self-realization, right? I mean, when we say confession to
Yeah.
bad behavior, we confess to ourselves, as in we talk with by ourselves to say, okay,
Correct.
what triggered me and what happened because of this, and is that what we are talking about in step two here?
Yes, exactly. It's confession to
Thank you.
yourself. Yeah, you're not telling this to
Thank you.
anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
the power of self-realization, right? And
Okay.
which is difficult, not easy, right? I'll
True.
move on to the
True.
next
True
slide.
that. True that. Thank you. Thank you.
Would you allow me to move on to the next slide? Any more questions here? Okay, I'll move on then. Okay, so the first step is, who let the dogs out? These are some type of persons, who can trigger the advice monster, and then, which type of situation it might occur. Someone who's more senior than you, in the situation when you know what's going on, right? The other example is someone who's more junior than you, or maybe at same level, but you kind of, you don't know what's going on, right? How do we react when we come across someone smarter, faster, or better than us, right? And in this situation, when they are playing helpless or helpless, The other scenario could be someone not as smart, as fast, as good. Time is short. As a manager, I would really want to get something done, and I'm accountable for the project delivery, right? But someone I'm assigned this project to is not smart enough. I think he's not good enough, right? Or she's not good enough. What do I do in this situation? Right. So these are some examples of situations where the advice monster kind of kicks in, and we are not prepared to take the risk due to the accountability we have, right? Any other situations, or any other type of person can you think of? I'll welcome some inputs from the participants.
Hi, Mayank.
Yeah,
Swarnali this side. Am I audible?
yeah, sure. Go ahead, Sonali.
Yeah, I thought it could also be like someone pretending to be smarter,
Hmm.
someone who is actually smart,
Okay.
which is the third scenario. And maybe the fifth scenario could be someone who is pretending to be smarter. I haven't seen somebody who would intentionally pretend to be not as smart, so I'm not creating a duplication of that scenario, but I have seen people who pretends to be smarter. So yeah,
Yeah, sometimes, I have seen such situations. Sometimes there are
yeah.
people who pretend not to be smart so that, if they are assigned
They
a
don't need
difficult
to
task.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. One such person
So
really,
we should have those kind of duplications as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, nothing that comes to my mind apart from this because these two situations I need to deal with
Yeah,
on
yeah.
daily basis. So I thought I'll pick it up. Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing in. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share their thoughts? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Now, this is where the author very nicely connects these behaviors with uh, remaining three steps of confessions. Uh, how does primary tailored behavior relate to confessions? In this behavior, I stop listening to what's being said as the idea shows up in my mind, because that's human tendency, right? When we think the idea we have is the best idea, we need not think any further, or our brain stops working after that, right? And then primary save it behaviors would be, I take responsibility for solving the problem. Primary control it behaviors would be, I take lead from the start of a meeting. You must have seen people, who, when the meeting starts, they kind of, they take the baton, and they also wrap up the things when it ends, right? So they're controlling. They kind of, some control freaks who'd like to be in control of everything, right? Prizes and punishments is quite interesting, where it's more like a carrot and stick, right? In US, there's a saying about a carrot and stick. uh, Talent behaviors primarily talks about, I'm always seen to be adding value, right? So it may be my assumption. My only way to add value is having an answer for everything. A heavy obligation, a very heavy obligation to carry forward, right? But sometimes, in the limelight, people don't realize what punishment. So the first one is actually prize, and the second one, a heavy obligation becomes a punishment. you know for save it behavior, I'm best placed to know what's right is the price, but the punishment becomes, I will always shoulder the responsibility of having to solve it. you know when you solve the most critical problem in the organization, everybody will be looking up to you to solve the next critical problem, right? you know you solve one kind of one war, there will be another war people will expect you to solve. Another war which you should solve, right? So kind of that's human behavior. It starts falling into the line. Controlled behavior, the prize is, I hold the reins, I'm the safest pair of hands, right? But it comes with punishment. I carry the burden again. I'm controlling everything. And you can imagine if at organization level, how much a burden would that be, right? It certainly becomes a punishment. Any other thoughts? Anybody would like to contribute here for some other examples? There are quite a few examples in the book. I just picked up, the key examples here and thought maybe, it will give us an opportunity to brainstorm and other participants can share their views. Okay. Future you is the final step, right? It's actually, the transformation. Now, these behaviors, how tailored behavior would look like, when you have really attained this step four of future you. I'm adding value by empowering others, right? Working through delegation rather than offering advice, right? Allowing people to come up with their own solutions, because what if they are able to independently find the solution to their problems, they would be able to do it repetitively, for later problems, right? Not just one time. Save it behavior, how would it look like with future you? I don't need to be responsible for everyone else's lives, right? We are working with all grown up adults, right? Let them be accountable for their own outcome, right? It's next level of maturity. Then controlled behavior would be, I can teach people how to drive rather than, doing all driving myself, right? Anything else anybody can think of, uh, how these behaviors will transform with future you? Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah, so it's, the final slide, where, we've already seen what the author says about how to transition from present you to future you. We also saw a small clip of present you and, the kind of tussle, different roles were going through in that video. That was quite interesting. That's why I thought of including it. So, where's all this taking you now, right? We have already reached to step four. You change the way you lead forever, right? You remember the initial goal of this part was to develop curiosity and everyday leadership behavior, right? And that's what we're trying to become, and which makes us smarter, more human, more effective, more coach-like. Yeah. Now, yeah, I think we have enough time. We've covered almost 40 minutes. We still have 20 minutes left for the session. I'll, just share my insight here, 2 cents on how I felt after reading this book, right? But what struggle I went through before I read the book. Probably that's something I wouldn't like to write here, but share with you all my feelings. Initially, I picked up this book. I read first 10, 20 pages and I dropped it. I felt information was very discrete. I was not able to connect the dots. And I felt, I already know this, right? That's typical reaction whenever, we see, uh, we try to, interpret the first thing that shows up, right? It's like, okay, I know it, I have loads of experience, years of experience, right? I know it. Why should I learn it? 2, 3 weeks later, I was trying to book my travel trip, and uh, and then I I saw, every time Google was showing up one travel portal, right? And I knew that that company was launched by my ex-boss 18 years ago, and the situation was, he was, one coach like bosses I've ever worked with in my 3 decades of career. I remember I went down the memory lane again, 18 years ago, when I joined that company from one of the world's largest software companies, second largest software company at that point. And I was carrying a lot of ego. I'm coming from the largest company. I was a manager there. I know everything. I've seen the world. Nobody can teach me. So when I joined this company, which was more of a mid-level service organization, I didn't have any work. My manager didn't give me any work. And for 1 month, I was sitting idle. Then my colleagues kept poking me. Go and talk to the boss and ask him why he's not giving. Are you on bench? It's a service company, right? And this was first time I ever worked with a service company. Before that, I always worked with product companies. So I just didn't know. I was totally frustrated. I just barged into his office one day and asked him, "You hired me for something. It's been a month. I have no work to do. What do I do?" And he was smiling. I was taken aback, to see calmness on his face. Probably he was happy that I asked that question. He said, I hired you for your potential. You have a lot of experience. You worked with second largest software company, and you must have seen best processes, how to make company profitable, and all that stuff, blah blah blah. And he said, you want me to tell you what to do? And you're part of an innovation group, right? It was an innovation group or processes and all that stuff. And that was the time when Agile Scrum was all catching up 18, 20 years ago, right? So he said there are tons of problems in this organization to solve. It's up to you what value you can add and how will you add value. If I tell you something to do, you won't be happy. You'll just do it as a task assigned to you by me. I said, I want you to be happy. Go and find out what is that you would like to do. And that moment changed my life. I transformed from, I started to transform from a manager to a leader. Probably I'm still transforming. I might still not be a leader, right? It's a journey which takes years, probably decades, right? But that was moment of self-realization of, how I didn't know what is coaching at that point, right? Probably coaching was not even known as a principle or anything like that, right? But I still remember him as one of my gurus, one of my mentors, one of the coaches rather, right? One of the coaches I've ever come across. And later, when why I decided to read this book, because when his portal popped up, 18 months later, this gentleman resigned. And when he was leaving, I asked him, boss, why are you leaving? He said, he was vice president. He said, okay, CTO resigned at that time. So he said, I have an option to step up as CTO. He said, but I don't want to do this. I always want to do something else, right? I asked him, what is that you want to do? He said, okay, he is still an American citizen, though settled in India back. He never went back to US probably for more than 20, 30 years now. He said, I want to serve this nation. I want to simplify. There's so many problems when people travel. I want to simplify. And the moment I booked, my tickets, and I felt, it's such a simple process, who simplified it. Then I saw, oh, it's this gentleman, he was my ex-boss. And see, over 18 years, he has built a company, which is kind of, coming on top of Google search. And so he was more like a coach because he didn't make me realize, rather it was a moment of self-realization for him. While he was telling me that I should do something that gives me satisfaction, he realized that he himself should be doing something that satisfies him, and he quit job and started his own company, which later, got funded by very leading uh, kind of, leading industrialists in India, founders of some top-notch software companies in India, and he still has funding, very, very good funding, and it's a profitable company. So that is when I again decided to pick up this book and read it. Yeah. And that's all I had from my side. Any thoughts? Anybody would like to share anything?
Yeah, Mayank, Aarti, and Charles have something to say. They have their hands raised up. So anyone can go first.
Yeah, I am not able to see, so yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, Mayank. Given that we are talking about behavioral changes, okay, I know this is not the topic that we are focusing on today, but I would like to know your insights on. Uh, I am not coaching I'm not advising anybody, but when I am coaching, What if the other person is resistant to it? In the sense that, okay, I'm taking your example, your boss told you, you have experience, you look at the problems here and you give me solutions, right? I'm not going to, he didn't want to say that, he didn't want to tell you that this is the problem, this is the, you find solution. He asked you to explore the possibilities. So if given that free hand, okay, you took it up and you worked towards it, right? Now here in my organization, there are a lot of instances where you give them the free hand, but they're kind of resisting it. We don't see that zeal or that enthusiasm anywhere over a period of months. I'm not talking about I'm giving it today and I'm expecting a delivery tomorrow. What prompts this change? What kind of behavioral change is required for, or mindset change is required for this?
Yeah, see, again, I can't speak for them because I don't know what's there in their mind, right? So
No, I understand. But
yeah,
what triggered you? That's what I want to know. So if I can apply that, or if I can showcase that as a positive trait, maybe something will trigger in them. I'm just trying to figure out that.
yeah, see, I can share what I felt in that moment. Uh, honestly, his further statement was, I said, okay, you set my goals and all that. His further statement was, if you succeed, I'm with you. If you fail, I'm not part of your journey. I felt that he was scoping out. That's why, I'm saying, it takes years to understand the philosophy,
I
right?
understand.
One who's at receiving end also needs
Mm-hmm.
to have enough maturity to be able to understand see, that's a problem, when we try to lead with coaching mindset, many times it happened with me too. Not now, after attending my, coaching program and all that, even before I tried to learn, because if you can imagine, 15, 20 years ago, if I encountered a boss like that, definitely, the seeding of mindset happens from there without even knowing what is coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Many times, when I directly worked with greenhorns, I mean, people, where uh, uh, people who have lesser experience, right? And they don't understand. And they,
Mm-hmm.
during skip level meetings, they complain to senior leadership saying my manager is not adding value because he doesn't give me advice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So what you're talking about, is essentially the maturity of advice receiver, right? We looked
Right.
at various people and behaviors of, advice givers and advice receivers,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's how, such advice receivers create burden on advice givers.
Mm.
Now we have to, strike a balance whether we give advice to them or coach them, or right. And at
Yes.
some point, even I tried to explain to somebody. It was a recent scenario, that this is coaching. I'm your manager, but I'm your servant. I'm here to solve your problems. I'm here to help you, support you, solve your problems, not solve your problem you have to solve. And this person just escalated, saying, okay, my manager is not adding value. He's not telling me what to do, right? So
All
it,
right.
it does
Yes.
happen. This guy was very experienced, believe me. So I mean, I think we can't typecast,
Understood.
anything, right? We can't typecast that somebody with less experience can only behave this way. It can be either ways. Let's not be judgmental there. Yeah.
It's true. No, no, it struck a chord with me when you said the maturity of the receiver matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it makes a lot of sense here for me. Thank you.
And there may
Thank you so
not be
much.
any shortcut. See,
Yeah,
I
true,
told you,
true,
right?
true.
Thank you, Arti. Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks for your
much.
insightful thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We have Swarnali and Charles, who I don't know whoever raised first their hand.
Okay, I don't know. Thank you very much for today's conversation. Been quite insightful. And then just speaking of, you know, putting people in a box, I was taking my time to look at the different types of people that you described. The three personas: tell it, save it, and control it. And I'm curious about the sample size that was used to arrive at these descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was stated in the book. And then, secondly, Yes, the book seems to vilify advice, you know. So it starts with saying it's a monster. What's your opinion about that in itself? Isn't it judgment? Isn't it judging? I say that because as coaches, the very first thing we learn when we come into the coaching journey is that we shouldn't be seen to take over a process by giving advice. We should be disciplined enough to believe in the clients to come up with their own solutions, because research proves that it's more empowering, that they're empowered and that they're able to follow through with it. However, if you look at the new competencies now, I don't know if you find that there seems to be a slight introduction of the need when it does arise. So I just want to know your thoughts. First, so as not to mumble it up, what was the sample size? Secondly, the book vilifies advice. Do you think it was right to go about it this way? Because no matter who these personas are, they are all monsters. All right. And then,
Yeah.
you can conclude with what you think about the new competencies and its opinion about advice. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Charles, for sharing your opinion and questions. To your first point, I'm not sure about the sample. I'm sure there must have been some method behind the madness. The author did. Um, as a reader of this book, I'm not sure of what kind of sample was used for this. But probably, by the virtue of our own experience, we can identify, if you just see, in last 12 to 24 months, what type of people, with telet persona, with controlled persona, with civic persona we have come across. Probably that would be the best way to figure out, this sample data, because it may vary from person to person. I did attend one leadership training from Dale Carnegie, where they had a very specific research. They said what they over 5 years they interviewed X number of CXO people, and they asked a very simple question. What made you successful? Was this IQ? Was this EQ? EQ is emotion quotient, or was this NQ? Because the program was a networking quotient, and they said 80% of them said that it was network quotient which made them successful, and led them to CXO position, right? So there, categorically, the author, or the um, Dale Carnegie organization, they disclose that research, but this author does not seem to have done it. So I'm not sure what went behind. I just shared what I read. Now to your second point, which was about uh, coaching competencies. Yes, I felt that the tone of the book and the narrative style adhere to some coaching competencies, but of course, it may not be complying with all coaching competencies. As author clearly mentioned in the first few pages, as I just look at this book. Initially, he says, the objective of this book is not to make you a coach, right? It's just to help you to transition to a curiosity led leader, right? So I think that's all I can say, that I don't think it will one-on-one really comply with all coaching competencies, because the book is actually not intended to make us a coach, right? Yeah, I think the other point you mentioned about using the metaphor of monster, right? Yeah, of course, I agree, right? We cannot be judgmental there. But at some point, in my opinion, as a writer, right? Because the first fiction which I wrote way back in 2016, the title was very catchy and a little bit derogatory also. And I knew there was a derogatory term in it, and a lot of avid readers, bloggers, they questioned me, why did you use this term? And on Goodreads some people posted that writer has just used this term to increase the sales volume of his book. So sometimes there is a commercial aspect of everything, right? There's an art cinema, then there's a commercial cinema, right? Likewise, there's a commercial aspect. As a writer, that's all I can say. At some point, really need some catchphrases to attract your audience, right? But of course, we don't have to be judgmental. I agree with your point. Thank you, Charles. I hope I was able to share my thoughts on your questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Swarnali, yeah.
Yeah, hi Mayank. So
Hi.
I do not have any question per se, but I just wanted to share my thoughts and wanted to understand how would you respond to that. So something similar to that what Aarti said. So when you were explaining different kind of persona, tell it, save it, and control it, and you were connecting or giving example of yours, like when you were empowered to do whatever, whichever way you could contribute to the organization, and you were successful possibly. So, but in the organizational environment, in today's environment, I'm saying, how do you think that the receiver's maturity and the enormous judgmental comments that you receive at that point in time when you try to do something new and try to say something different, uh, how did you respond to that, and how did you overcome those challenges to become successful? Because it is, of course, it is a team that needs to perform at the end of the day. It's not about uh, I performing individually and my manager saying that, okay, you have done something new and something great, because I alone cannot do anything. So how did you overcome that?
Yeah, see, I would say, one shoe size doesn't fit all, right? When we lead a team, there's a mix of different personas. And, you know, uh, we have to, adopt, right? Adoption is also two-way street. It's not like only, people have to adopt to manager style. Managers also need to adopt to uh, different personas in their team. There
True.
are people who need hand holding, so be it, right? We have to handhold them if they require hand holding. If we can't handhold, then I think the best way is to work through delegation, right? I also remember
Mm.
one of my ex-bosses, who's now happens to be CEO of that company. And when I joined, he was my boss and he was VP, and I saw him growing from VP to CEO. And on my day one during orientation, he said, my job is to replace my job. I was like, he's going nuts, right? People will just in his position. So,
Right.
but I didn't realize until I really saw him walk the talk, right? That is leadership, the character walk, right? Many times, our first reaction when we hear such leaders talking about, all these big things, and we're not mature enough to take it. In
Yeah,
short,
that's what I'm
right?
saying. That when people judge, when
Yeah,
we ourselves judge and we keep judging, that
there's a short term. See here, Michael says, playing dysfunctional roles has its own pitfalls. There's a short term upside, but then there's a long term downside. Likewise, there's a short term downside, and there would be a long term upside. So it's a
mm,
choice we need to make, and also make people realize that there's an upside, there's a downside. Like I told you, similar thing happened when I was in college, right? My professor, and I thought, he's just showing off his presence in India. He's coming, flying all the way from Australia when there was a dearth of computer science professors in India, right? That was my lack of maturity at that point, right?
true.
But we always have a subconscious mind, because that made me avoid bunking classes, because somewhere, in the back of my mind, I was aware he's right. It was the notorious side of, a student, which was kind of not allowing me to believe in him. But why do I still remember him, right? I think that's good enough
Yes. So while
example.
I agree and I realize what you are saying, but it is not that when you were student, like you lacked maturity. I see many adults, many seniors also behave in a judgmental way, which does not demonstrate the maturity that we expect from them.
Yeah, Sonali, I wouldn't like to be judgmental there. I said that, I was not mature, but it
Hmm.
was individually pointing
Yeah,
to
I
me,
understand.
not to all students,
It's
right?
your example,
Today,
of
if you
course.
see even people, children in schools are way quite mature, and then there are
True.
retired people where you will find lack of maturity. So I think age is kind of not a criteria. But yeah, I mean, we can't be judgmental by age. But yeah, it just happens. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Sonali. Yeah. Yeah, I think Chaitanya is alerting us on time. We're on top of the hour.
Yeah. So, does anyone have anything else to say? You can go ahead. Okay, then I think we can end over here itself.
Thank
So,
you.
everyone, I've shared the certificate in the chat box, the link to get the certificate. Please do fill up the form to get your certificates, okay? Thank you so much, Mayank. It was a really good session.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining. Bye bye. Have a nice day. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Aarti.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.